Hey, I'm Holly and I'm here to talk to you about comic books. As you may have seen, the internet and my life personally have been consumed by Riverdale, the latest in teen angsty high school drama. It has consumed Tumblr, it has consumed Twitter, Instagram, and honestly every aspect of my life. I have spent the last however many months thinking about Riverdale, talking about Riverdale, reading about Riverdale. Help me. I follow about 10 Riverdale fan accounts. I am deep in the fandom is what I'm saying. And you should be too. If you're here, I assume you are already a Riverdale fan, in which case you might know that Riverdale is actually based on comic books. Now, Archie Comics, the publisher, started in the 30s. They were originally called MLJ Comics, but after creating Archie in the early 40s, he eventually took over as their titular character, and hence they renamed the company Archie Comics. Those older Archie comics, they were really that kind of classic high school coming of age teen comic book series. They had that very clean, crisp artwork. It was all a bit silly in a delightful way. It definitely wasn't as dark and angsty as the show we know now as Riverdale. If you are wanting to read some Riverdale comic books, which you totally should because they're awesome, you can definitely start with the older stuff. Personally, I'm not a fan of it. It just doesn't really resonate with me. Over here in the UK, Archie comics weren't really a thing. We had stuff like Beano and Dandy that filled that hole. Archie never really took off in that regard until a few years ago when they rebooted the whole bunch. This shift in direction for Archie Comics also went along with them selling the rights to Warner Brothers to either a movie, which was the initial plan, or a TV show, which obviously became Riverdale. So these comics definitely share similarities with Riverdale. Those newer comics I mentioned come under the umbrella term New Riverdale. So where do you start reading with these? Well, thankfully they've broken it down in a super easy way. Each title is one of the characters. So there is the Archie series, who obviously is played by the devastatingly handsome KJ Apa in Riverdale. He has his own series written by a guy called Mark Waid, who's done some really awesome stuff, including Black Widow, champions a bunch of amazingness, and it's drawn by Fiona Staples, who is most known for drawing the amazing comic book Saga. It's definitely got a lot of the same beats as KJ Apa's performance in Riverdale. He is your typical high school jock, but he's got a heart of gold beneath that blue and yellow Letterman jacket. The comic book and Riverdale are very much in tune with that. Next up is maybe my favourite, Jughead. My favourite boy. Played by the outrageously charismatic Cole Sprouse in Riverdale. The comic books are really good. They are written by a guy called Chip Zdarsky, who has written a bunch of really funny comics, not just limited to Howard the Duck, and drawn by Erica Henderson, who is most known for her work on Squirrel Girl. So you've got a really great comedic team who have teamed up there to bring us the Jughead book, and much like Archie, it is very much in keeping with Riverdale. Now, Riverdale definitely takes Jughead in a more angsty direction, given his whole narration and his writing and everything. In the comics, you still have that sarcasm, that kind of bitter, dark humour that's absolutely there. He also eats constantly, which was awesome for fans of the comic books to see in the series, because they definitely have Jughead chowing down quite a few times. The other really interesting thing that the comics brought in is that Jughead is asexual. Now, whether they do this in Riverdale, no one really knows. Cole Sprouse has been lobbying pretty hard for them to make that a thing. Obviously, in Riverdale Season 1, Betty and Jughead get together, so that's not to say he's not on his journey, that's part of it, it's all on a spectrum. We'll have to wait and see. I would be surprised if they didn't do it, because it has become such a big deal and it's something the fandom talks about at length. Hopefully they will do that. It would be awesome to have that kind of positive asexual representation, because you just don't see it anywhere. Next up we have Betty and Veronica, played by Lily Reinhart, Daddy, and Cami Mendes. The Betty and Veronica series, titled Betty and Veronica, is by Adam Hughes, who is both drawing it and writing it. Unfortunately, it's not very good. It's a super misguided kind of comic book. Adam Hughes is typically known for cheesecake art, which is essentially kind of 50s style pin-ups, very male gazy kind of thing, which definitely has its place in comics. I personally like a bunch of his artwork, but I agree that things should be put in an appropriate place, and Betty and Veronica in the new Riverdale lot is really not the place for that. It should have been a really good fiery teen book just like Archie and Jughead, but instead they went a strange route with it, and to add insult to injury, Adam Hughes has only managed to produce 3 issues, where by comparison both Archie and Jughead are already on their 3rd trade paperbacks. However, there is a light at the end of the Riverdale shaped tunnel because we have a series called Betty and Veronica Vixens, which starts in November. It is written by Jamie L. Rotante and drawn by Eva Cabrera, and it is Betty and Veronica running a motorbike girl gang. I'm so here for it. Oh my goodness. So if you liked the Southside Serpent stuff featured in Riverdale, you've got to read Vixens. Even better still, Betty and Veronica's gang will actually be going up against the Serpents. It's all going to be about female friendship and empowerment, which is exactly what you want from a Betty and Veronica book. Now, some of the concept art has been circulating online and it looks amazing. There's also a bunch of other titles from Archie Comics. You have stuff like Reggie and Me, which is obviously about Reggie, Josie and the Pussycats, written by Marguerite Bennett, Cameron Diordio, and drawn by Audrey Mock. I really like that Josie and the Pussycats. It's probably sliding up to the slightly older end of the teen scale, just because it has a little bit more of an adult vibe to it. Still really, really good. And Sabrina, who you guys will know as Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Yes, that one with the aunts and Salem the cat and the boyfriend. She's from Archie Comics. How cool is that? And speaking of Sabrina, that leads me on to some spooky delights. So not only do you have the main new Riverdale series of comic books, but Archie also has a horror imprint. So this is where they take their characters and do some alternate universe horror stuff. The main title from that series is Afterlife with Archie, which is as awesome as it sounds. Basically, a zombie apocalypse hits Riverdale. Worse still, the zombie apocalypse is started by Jughead. Essentially what happens is Jughead's dog, Hot Dog, gets hit by Reggie's car. Hot Dog dies. Jughead asks Sabrina to bring back Hot Dog because he misses him so much, which she does, but unfortunately it turns Hot Dog into a zombie who then bites Jughead, essentially making Jughead patient zero. Jughead, in a kind of adorable thing, hides the bite and the circumstances until it's too late, typical horror movie mistake, and starts the zombie apocalypse. Poor Jughead. But in a kind of stroke of weird cuteness, Jughead's soul, which is now separate from his zombie body, is left to just kind of wander aimlessly until he finds Archie, and Archie is the only person who can see and hear him. Archie is real. Josie and the Pussycats also feature in Afterlife with Archie, and they are immortal vampires who change their identities every decade. That is the coolest and also perfect for Josie and the Pussycats. Next up in the spooky Riverdale AU, we have Jughead the Hunger. Now, the Hunger was just a one-shot, which means it was just one little single issue, a little special, with a story where Jughead becomes a werewolf, and unfortunately, Betty Cooper and her family are werewolf hunters. Uh-oh. Jughead the Hunger actually ended up being so popular that they're making that into an ongoing series as well, which starts this October, meaning not only is it in time for Halloween, but it's also in time for that sweet Riverdale build-up. So there is honestly a bunch of stuff out there. Plus, if you do read the comics, you get to be that person who goes, well, I read the book before it was cool, which you are totally entitled to do, because the comics are awesome and the show is awesome. And we've had it confirmed that Tony Topaz, who is a character from the comic books, is going to be in Riverdale Series 2. So if you start reading the comics, you're going to get the heads up on all these future characters. Now, Tony Topaz in the comic books is your typical tough girl, pink hair, bisexual, and she's actually Jughead's rival in an eating contest, which I think is actually pretty awesome as a fellow hungry girl. In Riverdale Series 2, all we've had confirmed so far is that she is bisexual, she's going to be a member of the Southside Serpents, she is going to befriend Jughead in some way, and she's going to be played by Vanessa Morgan. There's been some awesome behind the scenes pictures of Vanessa Morgan as Tony online. I'm super pumped for it. So that about brings you up to date on all the best Archie stuff to read. I will put all the details in the description below, as well as all the details of where you can follow me. I want you to let me know in the comments, have you read any of these Archie titles and which one was your favourite? I'm kind of stuck between Archie and Jughead. I mean, Jughead is my boy. If you're excited for Riverdale Season 2, give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget, buy your comic books from your local comic shop, get involved in the Riverdale fandom and join me in this world of angsty beauty. I will see you next time.